All eyes will be on Darlington Raceway this weekend. NASCAR is dusting off the cars and restarting the engines. For the last 60-plus days, there's been no live sports, but that changes this weekend when the racing world gets back on track at the Lady in Black. Good evening, folks, and welcome into a special edition of Sports Zone, getting you ready for a Darlington race at NASCAR on Sunday. Hope you all are at home staying safe. It's been a while since you've seen a Sports Zone show here, for obvious reasons, but good to be back, man.
It is good to be back. Practicing social distancing here a little bit, maybe just because I just don't want to sit next to you. You smell a little funky, it's been a while. No, I'm just messing with you. But no, it's good. It's good to get back here, and I know we're going to get into the show a little bit later, but UFC, of course, came back, but in terms of just having a major sporting event that's nationally televised, and what better way to do it on Fox, it is fantastic to have it here in the state of South Carolina.
No, absolutely. And you talk about South Carolina playing a big part in getting NASCAR back on track. So many of the racers are stationed in the Carolinas, in Charlotte, up there near the NASCAR headquarters. And obviously Darlington, a historic track, going to look a lot different than this weekend. There's going to be no fans out there in the grandstands, no fans on the concourses. It's going to be a bare bones race come Sunday at 3:30. There's going to be, loosened crews for the pit members and pit crews, and the drivers, they're not going to be making much contact at all. And it's going to be much different for the media too. Just all around going to be not your usual Sunday race day.
Yeah, and I know we're going to hear from Darlington Raceway President Kerry Tarpon in just a little bit, but when he had the message that came out a couple weeks ago that said, hey, we're going to race, he said in accordance with the CDC and the Public Health Agency standards and protocols, no fans will be admitted. However, they encourage all fans to be able to watch, which we mentioned. You can watch right here on Fox. You can watch on FS1, Fox Deportes, MRN Radio, and Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. So they're going to have you covered. So if you're a fan of NASCAR, you're a fan of sports in general, we will have you covered. They will have you covered as well. But yeah, it's going to have this kind of this weird feeling when there's no fans around. And this is also going to become the norm most likely, not just for NASCAR, but we're going to see this when Major League Baseball hopefully returns, NBA, NHL, and of course football coming up right around the corner.
There will not be much of a media presence there at Darlington Raceway on Sunday, aside from a few people and, pluck here and there. But again, it's going to be a much different scene. And Kerry Tharp, as you said, talked to us this week about getting ready for such a historic week. 3 races in 4 days for Darlington. And our Matt Dowell was up there earlier this week to catch up with Kerry.
Racing and sporting fans alike are excited for the first live sporting event to return to Darlington here this weekend, but there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to the actual races themselves. The coronavirus pandemic means these drivers haven't raced in months, and they're bound to be a little rusty when things get going on Sunday. But Darlington Raceway President Kerry Tharp says he's spoken to many of the drivers, and they all say they're itching and ready to get back to competition.
Well, as soon as I heard that we were going to host these races, I text several of the drivers and I said, hey, you better bring your A game to Darlington because this is the real deal. And several of them text back, and Jimmy Johnson and Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, I think they're ready to come. These guys haven't driven a real race car in over 2 months, okay? And to come out to Darlington on Sunday with no practice, no qualifying, I think it's going to be quite a challenge for them. I think this is where you see the competitiveness in these drivers really show up, and I think it's going to be something to watch.
Not only will the drivers have to get used to competing again, they'll also have to get used to a few changes during the actual races. Tharp says the Raceway is implementing many safety and health guidelines before and during the races to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. In Darlington, Matt Dowell, Watch Fox Sports.
So as you heard Kerry there talk about things being different for everybody, not just the drivers and the racers and the crew members, but also for the operations staff at Darlington Raceway as well. It's going to be interesting to see 60-plus days off how these drivers knock the rust off when they hit that track out there. And if you know Darlington Raceway, it's one of the more difficult tracks to navigate.
No, I'm not Richard Petty by any means, so I can't be one to say how difficult it is in terms of being able to get that rust off, but you just think about sports in general. I mean, NBA players have talked about it, just wanting to be able to get back to the arena and be able to shoot around a little bit to get that rust off, to get that feel. So it is going to be interesting, especially the first couple laps, to see just getting back into the swing of things, because who knows? I mean, I know we're going to get into it with Ryan Newman in a little bit, but that's another guy, for example. I mean, these guys, they have not been behind the wheel of an actual car. We've seen the simulations in terms of the iRacing, but it's just going to be different.
Yeah, they're going to take it from the virtual reality to reality on the track on Sunday. And Ryan Blaney talked about that yesterday.
It's going to be a little tough jumping back right into the swing of things after, I think I counted it was 62 days off it'll be, and jumping in at probably the most difficult track that we go to, and just lining up and racing. So I feel like everyone will take it easy for the first little bit, but honestly, the muscle memory of everybody I feel like is pretty good. So once you get one run in and things like that, I think we'll be back to normal. You know, I feel confident in NASCAR. You know, we have to be really, really careful and safe.
Now here comes the tricky part. This is where it's going to be really difficult. You see how high this is up here. This is where the spotters usually go for the races, and they are the eyes in the skies for their drivers. Well, they are going to have to come down into the grandstand where fans usually are, and that is where they are going to have to spot the race. You see they're usually up there packed in together, but there's going to be social distancing measures in place that force them to separate and spread out there. So going to be much different for those spotters as well, and that's a big part of the driver's game as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they've been able to have some of those practice runs like we've seen throughout the week, being able to go up there, and of course just the footage that we've been able to receive from our sister stations as well, trying to do everything you can to get that simulation in terms of trying to get an understanding of what it's going to be like. But of course, until you get to actual race day and you have multiple cars out there, you're not going to be able to get that true feel of it. So it's going to be difficult. There's going to be 3 races, of course. This isn't just the only race that's going to be taking place at Darlington in the coming days. But to be able to get that feel for that first race, it's going to be just interesting to see what they have to kind of just adjust on the go.
Adjustments to be made, and NASCAR spotter for Clint Boyer, Brett Griffin, says it's going to be interesting to see how things play out.
It's like we got another off season or something weird happened. You know what I mean? Because we've never, you got to realize we're used to racing, 40 times across a 42-week span. We're supposed to stay 6 feet apart. So if I actually need to tell another spotter something in the middle of the race, I can't yell 6 feet at him, hear what I'm saying with 40 cars out there running wide open. So, man, I'm not real sure what's going to happen just for how we do our job in terms of how we're going to have to stay apart.
We are just getting started here with that special edition of Sports Zone, getting ready for Darlington on Sunday. When we come back from break, we're going to be talking about the return of Ryan Newman. You saw the last time he was on the track. We'll hear from him after the break. 50 years ago, this infamous crash at the Rebel 400, 1970 on May 9th, Richard Petty flips off the embankment and goes rolling. That is a crash that people here in South Carolina remember all too fondly, and it is something that has stuck in the minds of NASCAR heads for 50 years. Welcome back into this special edition of Sports Zone, getting you ready for Darlington to return to racing and restart those engines on Sunday. Mitch Brown alongside Mike Yuba. We talked about that crash there. The last time there was a major race here to start this season, the Daytona 500 here for the 2020 season. You remember what happened there.
Yeah.
Final lap, Ryan Newman in that fiery crash. It was something, we were in the sports office talking about it and just how everything kind of silenced in the sports world at that moment.
And the sports world was able to see it in terms of pretty much everyone, because of course the race got postponed until that Monday, so you felt like you just had more eyeballs on that evening. And look, for Ryan Newman, when that happened, no one was thinking, when is he going to race again? It was going to be, is he alive? And then after we found out that he was, is he ever going to walk again? So to be able to see just the progress he's made since that crash, and that was just in February. That was just in February, okay? I mean, for him to be able to get up, to move around, and then just say, you know what, I'm ready to go after getting cleared from the concussion protocol from NASCAR, to be able to get back in that car. It's going to be quite a sight to see, and it's going to be an emotional one, I'm sure, not just for him and his family, but for NASCAR fans alike.
No, absolutely, and that's why you think there will be a lot of eyeballs on this race, not just because it's live sports, but because they want to see how Ryan Newman, who has become a fan favorite and endeared with the NASCAR fans and casual fans, see how he bounces back. Here he is talking to the media yesterday.
There was multiple miracles, big miracles and little miracles, in my opinion, that aligned for me to be able to to walk out days later with my hands around my daughters and to be thankful. So just proud of how everybody's united in the past, say, 20 years that I've been involved in the sport to make the tracks safer, the walls safer, the cockpit safer, the seats safer.
He got cleared by NASCAR medically to get back in the race car. And so this will be his first race back. And so I think it's very, very fitting that he says this is one of his favorite tracks. And so to come to Darlington, first race back, first race that he's been back since that real tough injury he had at Daytona, I think is a pretty cool story.
Now, through the rest of May, all the races will be different. No fans in the stands, at least through May. Of course, the NASCAR released a second slate of their return to racing schedule. We'll get to that later in the show. But our Addie Weaver, who is new to the Watchbox Sports team, was able to talk with Kerry Tharp about there being no fans in the stands and just how different things will be come Sunday for both Darlington and the drivers.
There is so much history in Darlington when it comes to NASCAR, and there's plenty of history to be made this weekend with the first live sporting event back since the pandemic. I spoke with President Kerry Tharp about the significance of no fans being in the stands. It's quiet in Darlington now, and it's going to stay that way in the stands this weekend.
Well, it's going to be very different because we're all about the fans, and as a promoter, you know, we spend so much of our time and energy and resources towards promoting the races for our fans, putting on great entertainment for our fans, selling tickets, getting hospitality lined up.
Millions of fans will be reached Sunday, and the pressure is on for NASCAR to be the first to ease back into live sports without fans present.
But we're not there yet right now in our country for a live sporting event to be conducted with fans. And so, you know, our goal is for these races to go off well, to go off successfully, to ensure that we can continue our schedule and that other sports can also continue their schedules. And at the beginning, it's going to be without fans. And then hopefully, as we continue through the schedule, we're able to add the fan element back in there. And that's very, very important to us.
While sports fans are eager to attend events, social distancing protocols need to be perfected before this is doable.
To have live sports back, I think people are going to be interested to see, what is that all about? It's been a while since I've seen anything.
Tharp also talks about how this could be an opportunity this weekend for NASCAR to grow their fan base. In Darlington, Addie Weaver, Watch Fox Sports.
All right, thank you, Addie. Good to hear from another Gamecock. We've heard from two in this show, Brett Griffin and Kerry Tharp, two guys who have been in this South Carolina area here for quite a while.
Should I throw Addie on the bus? She's Alabama.
You know, it's gonna be rough riding
so
here.
So if you see her, you want to talk about 2010, you know, by all means.
I'm
sorry, Addie.
She'll throw a couple of shots back after we get off set. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about what took center stage while racing had been shut down on the real oval track, virtual racing. Yeah, we'll talk about how NASCAR was able to make that a hit after the break.
Darlington's quite a lot different than any other racetrack that we go to, obviously. But everybody's, wearing their masks and practicing social distancing. So we're doing all that we can to be accordant with the CDC regulations and what the governor's put out there to make sure that we're doing what's right and being smart.
That is Chad Nouse, the crew chief of the number 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports, saying that his team has been taking shifts to make sure they get their cars ready in a short amount of time, but also be safe for one another and their crew as well. You know, it's been different because these guys haven't been meeting in garages and tuning up cars. What they've been doing over the past couple of months is meeting up on a live stream like Twitch and playing virtual races. I mean, it's different, but it's something that takes us back to what we used to do on the N64 and the Sega Genesis back in the day.
Maybe a little Mario Kart too, but I think more than anything is just being able to get that camaraderie back. And, look, for a lot of these guys, they've done this for so long. And as you heard earlier in the program, being able to get back out there, it's going to be like riding a bike. At some point, they're going to be able to say, hey, we remember what we're doing, everything's good, but it's just going to be those first couple of laps, that first pit stop, being able to have to make those changes in terms of just being able to get things going and finding that norm again. So I'm very interested to see, especially since this is the first race. As the rest of the week goes on, we see race number 2, race number 3. I think things are going to get a little bit smoother, but especially for those first couple of laps, how do things go? Is there some incidents? Is there a guy that maybe doesn't put a bolt on? Do we see a couple screws loose? So I'm just interested to see how things go and how smoothly they can go for a lot of these teams.
No, absolutely. And they even got Jeff Gordon out of retirement there.
Look at
I don't think they'll get him into a real car anytime soon. But he will be in the studio calling the race from Charlotte, the Fox Sports studio. They will not be the broadcast team in the booth at Darlington Raceway on Sunday. Just another one of the numerous changes happening here. We talk about some of those things that happened in iRacing. One of the more controversial things while NASCAR was on shutdown was Kyle Larson getting suspended indefinitely by NASCAR for using a racial slur during the live stream of the virtual race. Now, Larson has since been able to get into an Outlaws League race and be able to do some smaller races, but he's trying to work his way back to NASCAR. Obviously made a huge mistake and one that he has apologized for, but NASCAR saying no place for that in their franchise.
Yeah, let's call it for what it is. I'm white, you're black. I look at it and, that word obviously doesn't mean the exact same to me, but it has no place in sports. It has no place in sports. So everything that is coming his way, it is deserving, but I'm also a believer in second chances, and hopefully he'll have an opportunity to prove himself, but it's going to have to be through actions, not words.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the actions, and as you said, not words, because he said it way too comfortably on that live stream. But here is the upcoming race schedule after Darlington. It pivots up to Charlotte, May 24th and 27th for 2 races. Then they are going to Bristol Motor Speedway up at that Virginia border May 31st. They are coming back down this way in the south to Atlanta for June 7th and 10th for a pair, and then Martinsville Speedway on the 10th as well. And then you've got Homestead,
Just
Miami.
yesterday they announced that Miami coming back down.
Exactly. Going to be a lot of fun. Then right after that, they go to the Talladega Super Speedway. So they're keeping things in the southeast here for the second slate of races in places where they have eased restrictions and guidelines for COVID-19. When we come back, though, we're going to talk about how South Carolina has played a part in restarting sports when tragedies and pandemics happen. Stick around because you're not going to want to miss that connection here after the break. September of 2001, USC takes part in the first college football game since 9/11 happened against Mississippi State. It was an emotional scene before the game and obviously during and after. And South Carolina and the Gamecocks playing a part in getting sports restarted after such a horrific tragedy in our nation. Welcome back into this special edition of Sports Zone, getting ready for Darlington on Sunday, which will restart live sports here in the nation. Of course, UFC happened last week, but for major sports, racing and what it means to America, especially here in the Carolinas, it's going to be a big event come Sunday.
And look, we've been asked this 1,000 times, and I'm sure people have been talking about it too outside of the sports world. What is the closest thing that you can compare this pandemic to? And I think a lot of people would say 9/11. Of course, it's apples to oranges in some ways, but when you go back, this is like the last time that the sports world was shut down. And of course, it wasn't shut down for months, but it's the closest thing. So I think for a lot of people, much like it was for 9/11, and talking to guys that played on that USC team, him and coach Eric Kimmerer, he talked about it. He's like, it's just a weird feeling. It's an eerie feeling. You're trying to get back into the norm. You're a little nervous. I'm sure that there are racers that are going to be out there Sunday that are going to feel those same emotions. They're going to have those butterflies until they go around the tracks a couple times. So it's going to be one of those things that when do you get back to the norm? I don't think it's just going to happen this weekend. I think it's going to take some time.
No, absolutely. It's going to take some time, especially like you said, to knock not just the physical cobwebs off, but also up there in the mental headspace as well, which is a big part of being a NASCAR driver. And for NASCAR, this is an important weekend to try and gain some new viewers, gain some new fans while nothing else is going on. And Fox Sports analyst Bob Pockrass talked about the importance of this race weekend for NASCAR.
I think it's big. I thought it was going to be big anyway, obviously kicking off the playoffs with the Southern 500. This race on Sunday should attract people that who don't normally watch racing every week. So there's a chance to expose them to what Darlington has to offer and potentially excite them to come to a race, in the years to come. So I think it certainly can help the track. I guess we'll wait and see, but it certainly is good for for people to see, and the people who love Darlington will love it more, and those who haven't learned yet about Darlington probably will love it too.
Will be one of my first tastes of Darlington, so it'll be interesting to see just how this track plays out. To what everybody has told me, it will be the Lady in Black. When we come back, going to finish up our final thoughts here and talk a little bit more about this race that's coming Sunday at 3:30 right here on Watch Fox. Stick around. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back into this special edition of Sports Zone, getting ready for Darlington, returning to racing, restarting those engines on Sunday up at the Lady in Black. 3:30 start right here on the Watch Fox. We're getting you ready, though, here tonight and finishing up with some final thoughts before that green flag drops on Sunday. We talked about the rust and knocking off those cobwebs, Mike. What are you most interested outside of seeing who is able to kind of knock that rust off the quickest on Sunday?
I know this might just sound kind of dumb, but I'm interested to see what kind of changes Fox does. And I'm not just saying that because we work at Fox, because, well, we've seen Fox do some dumb things in the past. What I mean by that is we've seen Scooter the baseball explain what a curveball is. We've seen a hockey puck being traced in the past, but I think what Fox is going to have the opportunity to do is be able to do things that in the future, when you see sports come back, especially without crowds, just be able to make the atmosphere, make the experience that much more enjoyable. So I'm interested to see what adjustments Fox Broadcast makes.
Yeah, and as we said earlier, Jeff Gordon and Mike Joy going to be in studio in Charlotte to call the race. They will not be at the Darlington skybox. They will not be on hand. Only one Fox broadcast reporter will be on hand. That will be the pit reporter. So it's going to be interesting to see how they change that. But also, you talk about fans for NASCAR, not as pivotal as maybe a football game per se, but it also adds that element. It's going to be weird, and it's going to be interesting to see how the broadcast looks camera-wise with no fans in the stands. The other thing I'm interested to see is all people have to wear masks at all times. They also have to have their temperature taken multiple times while being on the course. I just want to see what happens from Sunday to when they finish things up on Wednesday at the track, and just as far as safety procedures and everything goes.
Big opportunity. Just the first time since 2004, they'll be hosting at least 3 Cup Series races this year.
3 Cup Series races, folks. Enjoy the race on Sunday, 3:30. We'll have everything covered for you right here on Watch Fox.